So it's right at 5. We
Okay.
might have a few people that join later. We did have some folks register, so we'll just wait and see who arrives. But my name is Cynthia Warner. I work with the Kentucky Arts Council. I deal with the arts education programs, so I manage all those. And Tamara Coffey, my supervisor, is also in here on the call. And we have the pleasure of having Jessica Greene join us, the academic program consultant for the arts, visual and performing arts for the Department of Education. So I'm really excited to hear the second part of this series, to dive more into the standards. And I wanted to pull up the program description or the webinar description so I can read that to you. I didn't memorize it. So Jessica is going to take us a closer look at the anchor standards and their unifying elements. Participants will reflect on their own personal milestones in music education, process components, and their purpose as actionable milestones for students will also be explored. So I am very happy to introduce you to Jessica.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. And Cynthia, thanks for having me back. You never know. After you do a session, it's like, do they like me? And Cynthia liked me enough to bring me back. So I'm thankful for that. As I said, we're gonna dive a little deeper into the standards. And because there's a smaller group of us, I will be more than happy to kind of tailor this for your needs. So if you want to ask questions, you can always unmute yourself and ask questions or drop them in the chat. And if I can't navigate all my screens, Cynthia will probably see it in the chat and make me aware, but I want this to be useful to you all. I usually start with like a who am I type of a thing. This is everything you never wanted to know about me. And I've started to think about like, what does this resume really mean in terms of who I am today? And so I've been on that little bit of a journey when I think about arts education milestones. And so this is the perfect season for that because one of my biggest milestones happened around Halloween when I was in primary school. And so I was living in a lot of different states. My dad was in the Air Force. And so my arts education looked so different state to state to state. And if we think about just in Kentucky, from district to district, from school to school, those foundational pieces sometimes can look a little bit different between what students have access to experience and what curriculum is being used and things of that nature. And so it really started making me think about my milestones and how the standards can support equity in those milestones across the state. And so my favorite story, like I said, happened in elementary school. So my K2 experience, I really, really wanted to be in the winter show. And it was actually about Christmas and Jesus, and I wanted to be Mary. I was like, I'm going to be Mary. That's my role. And so I was ready for auditions. I had practiced and practiced and practiced. And my family did not celebrate Halloween. And so I was absent on the day that Halloween was, which was like a Thursday. And then I was sick on a Friday. And then I was out and I was out weekend. And by the time I got back to school, there were no roles left. They had already cast the show. And I was heartbroken because I'd worked so hard. And I said, why didn't the teacher call home and check on me? Like, why did no one ask? Well, we thought you moved because I was an Air Force kid. And I said, but you could have called my house. I didn't move. I wanted to be Mary. And she said, well, there's one more role. And I said, okay, what is it? And she said, well, it's the donkey. And so that was the only thing left for me. And I was heartbroken. And I just thought as a teacher, I'm going to call home. I'm gonna check on my students to see. And if they're rehearsing and practicing and preparing for something, I want to give everyone a fair chance. So I think about those milestones. And we did this activity once in my office where we kind of wrote down the big things that prepared us for who we are today as educators. And so you can see that's that elementary Christmas show where I was the donkey. That was over in Florence, Kentucky. But then I started playing piano. And I think about having access to piano lessons, to piano at all, and how that shaped who I was. And then my GT experience in the arts, being able to go to another location and we learned calligraphy and we wrote movie scripts and we did Shakespeare, and just thinking about what I was exposed to at such a young age. There was one school I went to where everyone in fourth grade learned a string instrument, violin, viola, cello, or bass. I got there in fifth grade, so I was a year behind. And I remember what it felt like to be behind in the arts for the first time ever, and how my classmates would like rehearse with me during recess. Like, you're not going to make us sound bad. We got to rehearse Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And I think about how hard I worked in fifth grade to catch up with my peers, only to move to a new state where the middle school did not have an orchestra program. And it was like, okay, I did all of this work to learn this new instrument, and now I don't have access to it in my new school. So that was something that definitely shaped the way I worked as a district arts coordinator to make sure that there were access to those programs. And then I got to high school and started thinking about college. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be a piano major. I'm going to do piano pedagogy because I started piano so young, and thinking about the expectations from others and the box that I was put in, and then realizing in college I could try other things. So I want us to think for a moment about these milestones in our life that shape who we are today. And this doesn't have to be done out loud. Sometimes this is just a good reflecting point, but I'm going to refer back to this throughout our time together. So I want you to think for just a moment, what were the key points along your educational journey that shaped the arts educator that you are today? So split it into those four categories: K2, 3-5, 6-8, and then high school. Are there any questions, or is there any clarification I can provide before I give you some time to reflect?
No, but Perry said, I love this way of introducing milestones.
Oh, thanks, Perry. I appreciate that. It's been a good journey for me, and I'm hoping that once you all jot these things down, you'll be able to refer back to them throughout the year as those reminders of why we do what we do. All right. So I'm going to give you probably about 5 minutes just to jot down your milestones. I've got a little fall countdown window up there, and I'll allow you some time and check in on you. Okay. Okay, just pausing to check in and see if we need a little more time. Always try to put more time than's needed. So if you want to do like a digital thumbs up, or you can unmute and say more time or are ready to go. Oh, Cynthia's ready. Got a thumbs up from Steve. Welcome. Good. Well, we'll go ahead and move into opening the floor to anyone who might want to share. When I do this in person, we do this as a turn-in talk, and you share with a partner for 1 minute. But is there anyone who wants to share? This is just your K-2 experience. So that would be the equivalent of my I wanted to be Mary and ended up being the donkey story. Your K-2 experience that you would consider an arts education milestone. Does anyone want to share? Trying to remember K-2. Oh, I see something from Perry. Okay. Oh, good. We've got some good ones from Perry in here. Homemade Play-Doh. Ooh. Once I ate Play-Doh and I thought I was going to die. And so that was traumatic for me. So homemade Play-Doh is what my kids get. Very good. Well, and if you have a grade 3, 5, 6, 8, or high school you'd like to share, this would be the time also. Thank you, Perry,
Build a
for your
website you
memory.
love.
Okay.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Steve.
All right. So I couldn't think of anything for K2, but in fourth grade, I had the same kind of experience as you, where the teachers with a string quartet came and they played, and then they talked about all of the stringed instruments, and I wanted to play the bass. And the bass, I had no way of getting the bass on the bus every day. So I ended up picking up the cello, and I think it actually just called me. Um, but one of the experiences while playing the cello was the teacher in the public school invited a few of us to go to her house for a tea party where we had tea and cookies, and we all dressed up nice, and being fourth grade or fifth grade, and then she drove us to a concert. And I won't forget it. It was a bass player named Gary Carr, who passed away this past year, I saw. And I got to talk with him afterward, and I got his autograph, and it was very inspiring and seeing what I can do.
Oh my goodness.
Then the sixth through eighth grade, I guess, uh, I realized that I had some family members who were fairly famous and in the arts, and I started to really connect, especially in theater, to their passions and picking that up, learning about them. But really, when I hit high school, I got to see Rostropovich in concert and going back to my cello. But at the same time, what really gave me my spark was going to my very first rock concert, which was the Electric Light Orchestra. And I got to see cello in a way that I've never been able to perform it. I tried, but there was no teacher that was teaching improv or rock. It was all just classical in high school. So that led me to not being a cellist, but being a arts presenter and running performing arts centers and finding ways to find sparks for other kids as they're growing up.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And I'm thinking about that tea party experience and getting dressed up and what that meant, and just being exposed to the opportunities of hearing music in different ways. That is so valuable. And then on the flip side, I'm thinking about the barrier that is created by just the size of the bass and thinking about some of our students who may have to choose an instrument based on what they have access to, or the least number of barriers or things of that nature. I think about that a lot with visual arts as well, like teachers in the visual arts world who may not have a kiln, so their students don't get introduced to pottery for whatever, you know? So that's an interesting way to think about, are our students getting all the opportunities that they need, regardless of the barriers that we sometimes don't think about. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. Oh, I see Perry's face. Did you want to share something?
Well, I do remember one particularly formative experience in I think it was eighth grade, so just pre-high school, when I did a photo documentation of wildflowers in our county, and created a report based on those photographs. And I'm realizing that that continues to influence my work today. I now help to coordinate a photo contest across Louisville Metro called Ripple Effects. And it's a collaboration between environmental educators and professional photographers. We do workshops for students and award prizes for students in the same age groups that you're having us do these milestones for promoting the art of photography.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And I do see Katie has shared about a cabaret at the age of 4. Katie, this dress that you're saying you got to wear sounds amazing. You wore a flapper dress, pink with white fringe. That's awesome. What a great memory, because 4 is that's not easy to remember. So that must have been a pretty memorable flapper dress. I love that. Very nice. Anything else? Anyone else want to share one of their milestones? Don't want to leave anyone out. Very good. So sometimes you should think about doing some of these with your peers, because the best thing to talk about then is how it compares. Like, you're going to start to see these similarities between, oh, I didn't realize that was an issue in other arts programs, or I didn't realize that experience was common. So start to think about some of those things and how they're different, how they're similar to what you experienced. And then we think about it through the lens of our students. Let me get to that next one. So think about, how does our experience shape our foundational beliefs? So I shared that I knew immediately when I became a teacher that I was going to call home. A foundational belief for me as an educator was make contact with the families, with the students, check on them. And so think about one of those experiences you had, and I'll just give you a minute to kind of think through that, and think about how it shaped your foundational beliefs as an arts educator. So just a minute for that. And as you wrap up that thought, the floor will be open for anyone who wants to make that connection out loud to their foundational beliefs.
Yes, I can go on again.
Yes.
Pick up where I was with high school and that spark that I found and discovered about live music in a very large, profound way. That shaped my belief that the arts can help people learn and explore and get turned on to things and have commonalities to talk about amongst people, which again led to me being a presenter of performing arts and visual art to turn other people on to great experiences and learn from other cultures.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Very good. Anyone else? All right. So oh, Perry, go ahead. I saw you come onto the camera.
Well, I'll just explain that I am an environmental educator, and some people think of environmental education as just science. But my experiences of becoming passionate about the environment were completely interdisciplinary, including the arts. And I really have a lot of memories from fourth grade where those experiences were integrated around the very first Earth Day. So promoting an interdisciplinary approach to environmental education, completely integrated, has become an important foundational belief for me.
That's awesome. Thank you. I love that cross-disciplinary connection there. Very good. Awesome. We'll keep these ideas at the forefront as we move on, because we do have the foundational beliefs that the writers of the new standards kept at the forefront. And Cynthia was part of this team that reviewed and revised the visual and performing arts standards for Kentucky. And whenever we had what we like to call collegial discourse, we came back to this mission statement just to ground ourselves in what students needed and what our foundational beliefs were. So I'll give you a moment. Sometimes I read this out loud. If you'd prefer it read out loud, I can do that for you, but just take a moment to review. This is the mission statement for the Kentucky Academic Standards for Visual and Performing Arts. We'll do about 30 more seconds and then open the floor for you to point out some of the foundational beliefs you see in this vision. Right, and the floor is open. If you see a phrase or some words that struck a chord with you, this is your chance to share it. Perfect. I've got some from Perry in the comments. Just having students become engaged citizens, also part of the vision of Kentucky Green Schools. Nice. Love that you can draw that connection. And Perry enjoys lifelong connections to the arts as consumers, curators, and creators. Perry, we would be best friends because that's my favorite line as well. And I always share that there are some times that we kind of put students into two categories. Either they're going to be creators and they're going to be professional artists, or they're going to be professional performers. They're going to be like on Broadway, or they're going to be, you know, and we forget about those who are just consumers. They're just consuming the arts, and that is perfectly fine. And we want everyone to know how to properly consume the arts and support the arts and enjoy art. And so we really tried to make sure we focused to make sure we weren't missing that third group of students that are just as valuable as those who are getting a star on the Walk of Fame. Anything else you all see that you enjoy about this vision statement? Very good. Well, I'll show you my favorites. They're highlighted in yellow there. And there it is, Perry, that last sentence, my favorite. But thinking about access to the arts, that kind of goes back to what Steve was talking about with that bass. He wanted to play the bass, but did not have the means to get it home. Authentic lifelong connections, definitely something we like, and that authenticity of the experience making a difference in their life. And so these are kind of those foundational beliefs that we are going to see embedded throughout the standards. So the question, how could the identified foundational beliefs impact the student and teacher experience in K-12 visual and performing arts education? And so this is just a question to keep in mind as we go through this next section. Part one that I did in the summer was really kind of about the architecture of the new Kentucky Academic Standards. If you hear me say CAS, that's what I'm saying. It's shorthand for Kentucky Academic Standards, KAS, CAS. So the CAS for VPA. And so this really dives more into the anchor standards. And so the anchor standards, I think Steve might have said this word, commonalities. This is where we get the common language across all 5 arts disciplines of dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts. So this is all the anchor standards that connect those. And so the question that guides this, how do the anchor standards unify all 5 arts disciplines and enhance artistic literacy for all students? So one of the biggest updates to the Kentucky Academic Standards for VPA is this focus on artistic literacy. And the team was very careful to make sure that they were able to coin a definition of artistic literacy that arts teachers can use to drive their work forward. And so that definition there at the bottom of this slide, literacy of the arts includes speaking, listening, observing and viewing, reading, writing, and creating practices that students use to access, understand, analyze, and communicate their knowledge about all disciplines of the visual and performing arts. And so when you see some of these action words, speaking, listening, reading, writing, it aligns very much with early literacy, with reading and writing. And that was intentional as well. We do want students to be able to talk about music and to talk about art and to write about their art form as well. And so we've embedded some of those artistic literacy pieces throughout as well. So again, the anchor standards describe the general knowledge and skills that teachers expect students to demonstrate throughout their education in the arts. So there are 11 of those anchor standards, and we really wanted to keep the anchor standards due to feedback from the field at the beginning of our revision process, which was about 2.5 years long. And at the beginning, the field said, please stay aligned with the National Core Arts Standards. We said, okay, this is a great way to stay aligned in that way. Now, some of you may know the National Core Arts Standards are beginning their review and revision. And so that process takes a lot of time, but I am very much involved in that timeline and knowing what's happening. So we'll stay abreast of any changes. And when our next revision process comes up in 5 years, we'll be able to look at what needs to be done. So these anchor standards describe the learning for each artistic process. So we have creating, performing, responding, connecting. And there are 3 anchor standards for creating, 3 for performing, 3 for responding, and 2 for connecting. And then I usually always just say performing because I was a music teacher. And so we were using the performing. But if you are media arts, you are producing. And if you are visual arts, you are presenting. If you are music, dance, or theater, you are performing. But if you hear me just creating, performing, responding, it just flows a little bit better for me. But just know that I know. There are 3. So you can see those anchor standards. This is a 1-pager on page 8 of the CAS that you can just print and have as a quick reference page. We wanted to have a few of those throughout. And so you can print that colorful chart. And the blue, purple, coral, and goldenrod yellow align with the National Core Arts Standards colors. We adopted those in order to align more. We did change some of the colors. We muted the coral and we made the yellow goldenrod for Kentucky. But that was another thing we did to make sure that we had that connection to the National Core Arts Standards. So I want to give it just a quick overview of what those anchor standards are. And so that quote at the top is the same on each of the next slides about the anchor standards describing general knowledge and skills. So creating in the blue, conceiving and developing new artistic ideas and work. And so that's anchor standard 1, 2, and 3. So we have generate and conceptualize artistic work, organize and develop artistic ideas and work, refine and complete artistic ideas and work. So if I look through the lens of music, for me, creating includes generating and conceptualizing, organizing and developing, refining, and completing. So that's an easy kind of 3-step reminder of the process. And this applies to all of them. Visual arts, generate and conceptualize, organize and develop, refine and complete. So just thinking about it in that way, it kind of streamlines everything you need for your standard and for the skills you want your students to be able to do. And Perry, I see your comment about the thanks for keeping the colors. I'll pass that along to the team. We had a team of 30 folks who were really dedicated to this work. And I'm hoping that the national standards keep the colors too. It's probably one of the easier things to keep consistent. Okay, so the next anchor standards go with our performing, producing, presenting, and that's realizing artistic ideas and work through interpretation and presentation. And so anchor standards 4, 5, and 6, you can see very clearly we're going to select, analyze, and interpret, develop and refine, and then convey meaning through the presentation of artistic work. So those are the 3 anchor standards. Again, the same across all 5 arts disciplines, so we can have that common conversation about what it looks like to perform or produce or present within our art form. And of course, if I'm going too fast, you can just unmute and say, slow down, or you can put it in the chat and we'll catch you up. So then we get into the responding, that coral color there, understanding and evaluating how the arts convey meaning. So that's anchor standards 7, 8, and 9. Perceive and analyze artistic work, interpret intent and meaning, apply criteria. That apply criteria has probably been one of my favorites. I'm going to show you a resource here in a while about responding to the arts. We did receive a lot of feedback from the field, students particularly. We did ask for feedback from students who felt like they were not given as much time to learn how to respond to the arts. And so we focused our efforts on working on that and using rubrics and criteria for students to guide their own artistic journeys. So I'll get to show you a little bit of that here in a moment. So those are the responding anchor standards. And then even though it hurts my heart to not have 3, 3, 3, and 3, here are the last 2 anchor standards 10 and 11 for connecting, which is relating artistic ideas and work with personal meaning and external context. And so anchor standard 10, synthesize and relate knowledge and personal experience to make art. And then 11, relate artistic ideas and works with societal, cultural, and historical context to deepen understanding. Now, I will say for our music friends, Anchor Standard 10 and 11 were the hardest for music because they legitimately wrote new standards because they were kind of repeated. They were very repetitive across that Anchor Standard. So you'll see a lot more depth within that one. Okay, so the 11 anchor standards, again, those are those unifying elements across all. Collectively, the inclusion of anchor standards creates a cohesive and aligned system that allows for both commonalities across the disciplines and specificity within disciplines. And we'll look at a little bit of specificity here in a moment, which specificity is a lot of fun to say, but I don't know if I've had enough coffee to say it a 4th time, so just be warned. These are not to be confused with the discipline-specific performance standards. So if we're thinking about that kind of a pyramid, those anchor standards are at the top, and then they flow out to performance standards that are specific to the art form and specific to the grade level as well. Okay. So with our performance standards, again, they align to those 11 anchor standards, but they're written for those grades K through 8, and then at the proficiency level for high school, proficient, accomplished, and advanced. The only thing that really changed with the proficiency standards is in the coding, instead of doing Roman numerals, proficient was Roman numeral 1, accomplished was Roman numeral 2, and advanced was Roman numeral 3. It got a little confusing because in the music world, Roman numerals really talk about the level of difficulty of repertoire. And then when you go to like state assessment or regional assessments, I want to earn a 1, but in our proficiency levels, a 1 was the lowest. So it's just some of those things that we thought, let's clean this up. So we use the shorthand of each of those terms. So proficient is PROF, accomplished is ACC, and advanced is ADV. So I'll try to show you an example of that in the coding, but this proficiency standards did not change, just the way we communicate them in the coding did. Okay. So when we look at those grade level standards, this is a screenshot of what it looks like on the page. You can see this page is blue, which means it's one of the creating standards. If it was purple, it would be performance. If it was goldenrod, it would be connecting. And if it was coral, it would be responding. So the pages are color coded also. So as you're flipping through the hundreds of pages, by just seeing the color, you can kind of gauge where you are. We added these buttons. We're calling them buttons. It is not a legal or official term, but we added these buttons in the top left as kind of place holders for the discipline, the artistic process, and the process component. So that when you look at the top left, you know that this is dance, creating, and we're going to create through exploration. We're going to explore. So you get those three pieces of information by just looking at that button. And then the next to the right is all of our foundational information. The first thing you're going to see is the anchor standard. And you'll see the number and then the description of that anchor standard, followed by the enduring understanding, the essential question, and then probably my new favorite piece, the key vocabulary. So any vocabulary that we felt educators needed to know prior to implementing the standard, we put in a standalone box. And if you see it within the standard underlined, that means it is hyperlinked. You can click it and it will take you to the actual definition of that word. So that's a nice little change. So that first circle up at the top, anchor standard, that's the overarching anchor standard. And then the middle section is the actual standards language. The box at the very bottom, clarifications and notes, those are clarification statements if we felt we could provide additional information to understand the use of the standard. There is not a clarification statement for all of the standards, so there may be blank boxes, and we left them blank to encourage teachers to make their own clarification statements or take their own notes on how they would implement the standard. Let me pause here. Any questions, comments, concerns, or praise for this new standards layout that I can entertain at this time, while I also take a sip of my lemonade?
I just have to say, I think they're so much easier to understand and easier to read. I love the architecture of it.
Yes. And Cynthia knows the subcommittee for the architecture, the design group, they spent so much time. We tried 3 or 4 different layouts, and this we just felt was drawing the eye better and better each time. Very good. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but if you have thoughts along the way, please feel free to jump in the chat or unmute. All right, so this is an exercise I would encourage you to do in your own time. It's also a really nice way to think about the progression. So no matter what grade level you teach, you can think about what your students should know before you and what you are preparing them to enter into. So on your own time, choose an arts discipline and an artistic process and look at one of the anchor standards and just kind of map out how it progresses through each of the grade levels. It's really interesting to see how that comes together. All right, so then I mentioned the process components. That's the third part that's in that little button at the top left. And so these are the actions that artists carry out. So I mentioned the first example was explore. So we want students to be able to explore, especially in that K2 zone. Exploration is super important. So this is the student's ability to carry out the operational verbs. It empowers them to work through the artistic processes independently. And this is super important because I think sometimes we hold hands a little too long with our students and we forget that the overall goal is for them to be able to do this artistic work independently, to explore on their own, to create their own products. And so that's what those process components are really about. And they are specific to each of the artistic disciplines. So this chart does not exist anywhere but outside the Getting to Know the CAS PowerPoint. So I'd encourage you, and I'll show you in a moment how to access this PowerPoint, but I'll show you how to access that. It's a quick way to look at what each of those action verbs really entails. And so you can see across Anchor Standard 1, all 5 arts disciplines there: explore, conceive, imagine, conceptualize, develop. And you can start to see, it looks like Anchor Standard 2, media, arts, music, and theater were all on the same page. That's where they develop at Anchor Standard 2. And then you can see at Anchor Standard 3, dance and visual arts, they revise and refine. Music has 2 process components for Anchor Standard 3, which means there are actually 2 standards within Anchor Standard 3. So music has a 3.1 and a 3.2. 3.1 is about refining, 3.2 is about presenting. So if you see multiple process components, you can guarantee there are multiple standards for that to hit each of those process components. So what notices and wonderings do you have about the process components for the creating standards? I'll always give wait time, but I will move on, don't worry. So the floor is open if you have anything to share about these creating process components. Yes, Steve, I see your question in the chat. The standards that are online somewhere, I'm going to show you how to access them, and you'll have the full 300 and some odd pages at your disposal. I will definitely give you that. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a nice, but it's easier to get. You can look at just one discipline at a time. You can look at it however it's needed to. Don't you worry. All right, let's look at our purple, which is my favorite color. Performing, producing, presenting. You can see we start to see a little bit more consistency between the arts disciplines for each of these anchor standards 4, 5, and 6. So Anchor Standard 4, music, again, has 3 different standards with different focuses. They have select, analyze, and interpret. But you also see theater and visual arts have select as well. And then for Anchor Standard 5, embody, practice, rehearse, prepare, analyze. And then Anchor Standard 6, present, perform, share, and share. So we're starting to see a little bit more of that cohesiveness. Now we have elements of sharing within presenting. It just depends on the art form, what level of shine you give to that presentation. Okay. Say a little bit more about analyze related to visual arts. Sure. So in performing and producing and presenting, sometimes we get stuck in thinking it's only about students presenting their work and not the importance of being able to analyze the presentation. So this might be an artist statement where they're analyzing their own process or a response to someone else's artwork. It could be done in a couple different ways. And the thing that's going to guide what that analyzation looks like is the discipline specific grade level standard. So kindergarten may analyze in a completely different way. It may be which artwork has circles, and they're analyzing in that way. Whereas high school may be, is the emotion the artist meant to convey prominent for you? And they're analyzed. So the level of depth for analyzation changes. Oh, good. Sometimes that makes sense. Thank you, Perry. That thumbs up made me feel good. Any other questions about our performing, producing, presenting process components? Very good. All right, we're going on to our third one, which is our choral for responding. We see more analyze in responding than we do presenting, which is always interesting. Visual art switches, they're analyzed to perceive their perceptions of artwork in that zone, but then they come back to analyzing in Anchor Standard 8. You can see interpret was this close to being the same across Anchor Standard 8. But visual arts has that extra step of analyzing as responding before interpret, which could go hand in hand with perception. It just depends on which order. So a lot of times you may see Anchor Standards 7 and 9 approached at the same time in visual arts because they kind of go hand in hand in different ways. And then you can see Anchor Standard 9, dance uses the word critique. which is a very technical term, which for dance makes sense. There are very specific techniques that are necessary, while media arts and music use evaluate. So it's not to say that dance never evaluates. That focus for that standard is just more about critique. But yeah, we were real close to interpret across the board. I don't know if it was like one of those slot machines where you win something when all the fruit lines up, but we were very close. Any questions, comments, concerns about the responding process components? Very good. And in this one, again, music has two standards for Anchor Standard 7, one for select and one for analyze. And then that moves us to connecting our goldenrod yellow. We have theater with 2 for Anchor Standard 11, interrelate and research. And again, we almost hit all 5 for relate. Theater took it a step forward to interrelate, which when you think about conveying another character, another person, interrelate is kind of important. Communicating with other actors on stage, things of that nature. Same thing with empathize for Anchor Standard 10 under theater. To be able to empathize with a character in order to convey it is very important. And then we almost had another one over at Anchor Standard 10 with synthesize. Synthesizing that information is very important to that standard as well. This is about seeing yourself and seeing others and relating your personal context to art in the context of others to the art you create as well. So I will, again, I'll show you how to access this PowerPoint, and you can print these slides to have that kind of chart with these easy access to the process components and ask yourself, am I hitting all of these action verbs with what I'm working on? So when we think about that question from the beginning, how do the Anchor Standards unify all 5 arts disciplines, dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts, and enhance artistic literacy for all students? We'll take a moment just to think about that, and then I'll open the floor for any comments you have about this question. How do the Anchor Standards unify the arts disciplines? And as you're reflecting on that question, the floor is open. The chat is also open if you would like to share any insights you have.
I guess I can see now why you were getting excited that the disciplines, when they were becoming aligned, so that someone can look at all of the disciplines as a whole and be able to pick out and try to be looking at using the same language when you're trying to teach it. It's by giving them that kind of standard approach across all 11, that does, I think, help enhance the literacy.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Steve. You're exactly right. That the ability, and I call them our unicorns, but those teachers who are teaching multiple arts disciplines, to the ease of understanding, I'm teaching the same thing through a different, discipline and different area. And then our administrators and our curriculum coaches who are learning so many different content areas, to be able to have that commonality when they're talking to their arts teachers is a powerful tool as well. Thank you for sharing that. And then Perry in the chat, learners will feel a kind of consistent rhythm across all arts disciplines. Yes. And love the use of rhythm for that as well, not just as a musician, but that's the idea of being in sync, being together, being unified. Very good. Thank you for that. Yep, we want to make sure we can have that power of unification across the disciplines, especially for our singleton teachers who feel so alone in their arts discipline, that they know that there are folks teaching what they're teaching. All right, this is arguably my favorite part, and when I get to talk to you about some implementation resources. I might have to stop sharing to make sure I'm sharing the correct screen once I start clicking on websites and things. So as I start to click, Cynthia, just let me know if you're not seeing what I think you're seeing. Okay. So I'm still in the PowerPoint now. The first place I want to take you is to kystandards.org. And I'm giving you homework, but I'm giving you homework that you get to do during class. Okay. I'm going to click my link and then I'm going to pause and see if it lets you. Are you seeing a website or still the slides?
So the slides.
Okay, perfect. Let me alter this real quick and see if I can do. Okay, now you see my website now.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to go to the home screen of kystandards.org. And so it should look like this. It's got our nice little logo up here on the left. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the left side, it says, please add your name and email to subscribe to the Standards newsletter. And that is what I would love for you to do, because the first things I'm going to show you are not published yet. They are going to be published very soon. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you will receive a notification when they are published. And you can go, I knew ahead of time. So please sign up for that. You'll get the Standards newsletter, and any announcement I put out will go there. And I just put the website in the chat in case that's easier for you to click on. And so I'll give you just a few moments to do that. And then I'm going to walk you around the website, give you the tour. All right. So on kystandards.org, if you go to your standards resources, you could go to explore your standards, but it will only be your standards. The standards are also on your standards resources. So I suggest going there because you get the resources with the standards. So under your standards resources, you're going to see all these bubbles. Under content area resources, you'll see the art palette for visual and performing arts. And so when I click that, I get this new page here. And our color is teal. They didn't ask me if I wanted purple. Sorry. But visual and performing arts resources, the very first bubble you see, so Steve, this will be for you, is the visual and performing arts standards. So I'll click that for a moment and you'll see the PDF there of the standards. And I'll throw that in the chat for you also. It's a long little URL. Okay. So as I go through, I will say the biggest update to this standards document is the front matter, or the information that explains the how and the why, and then the hyperlinks. So if I am a music teacher, I can click the area I want and it will take me directly there. So I can go to middle school grades 6 through 8 and I will find all of my standards there. And I mentioned that if the word within the standards language is underlined, that it's hyperlinked to a definition. And so I just clicked that word and it took me directly to the definition of phrase as it pertains to music. So there are 5 glossaries in here, one for each arts discipline, because the definitions are specific to the art form. Because media for visual arts is different from media in media arts. And rhythm has slightly different definitions from dance to music, so on and so forth. And so when I'm here, if I'm trying to navigate a little quicker, you can see I'm on page 246. I can go back to the table of contents by clicking that language at the bottom of each page, and then I can navigate where I need to go. The other thing is each discipline has an introduction. So this is the introduction to visual arts, and it explains what the discipline of visual arts is, what artistic literacy looks like in visual arts, and then the foundations. So this foundations piece really answered the question of, well, when do we teach elements of art and principles of design? And so this explains that they are within all the standards, so that you can utilize that a little bit more efficiently. But each discipline has this section with an introduction, what artistic literacy looks like for that art discipline, and then their foundational pieces. So that's a really nice part. And if those show up in the standards language, then it will link to this portion of the document for the reminder. Yes, Perry, it's really nice. That table of contents hyperlink is super helpful because again, this is 300 plus pages, but you might only need 100 of those pages if you only teach elementary music. So being able to navigate quickly and get what you needed, that was a very important thing for the committee to develop. Okay, so you'll have some time. I'm going to give you guys some exploration time in a little while. You'll have some time to explore the standards. But for now, I'm going to go back to kystandards.org. So again, this first centered button is your standards language. This archived, that's the old standards. They are no longer in law. This will disappear soon. Then you have the professional learning modules with the little person on the screen. It's not me, but it references me a lot. But this is the CAS, the getting to know the CAS module that I just showed you. This is where you can get the full PowerPoint, and there's an accompanying note catcher. If you would like to go through that together, you can do that. And then this is like an overview of what's in the getting to know the CAS in case you have an administrator or somebody who wants to know what you learned. You can give that little one pager. So when you click this button, it will download the full PowerPoint. In the presenter notes for this PowerPoint is everything I would say if I was presenting it. It doesn't have any of my amazing jokes. However, anything I would say in presenting that information is in the presenter notes there. Okay, so that's for you. Now I want to show you one more thing, which is, oh, I may not be able to show you today, and it's not my fault. Canvas is down. Here's my question. Did it go back to my presentation? Do you see my presentation yet?
No.
Okay, let me switch my screens real quick. I hate to say that Canvas is down right now across like the nation. My husband, who's a high school math teacher and also adjunct at EKU, was distraught today. He's also in charge of technology for his building, so it was a very rough day for him. But all of our professional learning is now on Canvas. So there is a way to go through this getting to know the CAS module on Canvas. Let me show you what that looks like. It's our KY Learning Hub. And it's free. You just enroll in the course. It goes through every step of the getting to know the CAS, and then it has the ELA credit certificate for 4 credit hours to go towards your professional learning. And so you're going to start to see more and more resources on the KY Learning Hub for professional learning. Very excited about it. When Canvas is not offline across the nation, it would be delightful. But KY Learning Hub is what you will want to visit. So a few more things on the website. I'm going to switch to my web screen again and see if that works. Down for maintenance, back to KY standards. All right, here we go. High school friends, this is going to be most useful for you. This is course codes documents. It shows any approved course in the state of Kentucky for visual and performing arts and how it aligns to the standards. So this is also helpful if you're like, I want to start a new course. I want it to contain this. Does a course like that already exist? Because you can use the course code and rename the course for your school if it's better that way. So I'll go here to middle school. It's going to pull up this PDF. And it shows, here's all of the courses under crafts, dance. I'm just trying to make this a little bit larger. It's such small print. Dance. There's theater, so introduction to theater, theater design and technology, acting and performance. There's everything for visual arts, including photography and web design. And then there's music. And so then when I click the course, let's go to 500923 guitar. It pulls up all of the standards that should be addressed in that course. So if you need a quicker reference than our hyperlinked document, this is another great way to print what standards should be done. Now, because this course does have a middle school component, we went ahead and included the middle school intermediate proficiency level there and the high school. because a lot of our itinerant middle music teachers do teach down to the middle school and sometimes the elementary level. And so we wanted it all in one document. So those are course codes. And it's great for communicating with your guidance counselors as well. And then the other thing, let me make sure I'm not missing anything else that I wanted to share with you on this one. Oh, I know what I want to show you. This is really, really, really new. This is called the digital CAS. And this is what's used for embedding your standards into Infinite Campus for like standards-based grading, things of that nature. So this has only existed from that level thus far. They have just opened it up for us to share with you all digitally. So if you like this format for the standards better, you can use it this way. So it has a link to the PDF right here in the official source. But then you can see all the standards and how they nest together. And if I click it, there's the enduring understanding, the essential question, the key vocabulary, and then there's a link to the glossary as well so that you can see those definitions. But this is just another way, it's a digital version of that PDF I showed you. And there are a few different views you can do with this. Let me show you. This is the tree view, but then you have the tile view. And I kind of like the tile view because you can see how everything kind of builds through each of them. You also have this table view here if you wanted to print everything. But the best part for those of you who are doing standards-based grading is you can print this as a spreadsheet, so that you have it all in one place. So this is the digital CAS through Satchel. And again, I'll make sure you have all of these links, but wanted to show you this brand new resource. And we literally have just announced this as something to be used by educators and not just those who run Infinite Campus. All right, I've said a lot of things before I move on. Questions, comments, concerns, anything I can restate or re-show? Cynthia, you hadn't even seen the digital cast yet, had you? Yes, I showed Cynthia something new. Oh, I'm so happy. I'll send you the link. It's really lovely. Good, good, good. All right, I'm gonna switch my view again. Let me see if I can get there. Perry, I like that emoji. A very studious emoji. Okay, let me switch back. I'm gonna show you a few more things. So we've gone through our KY standards. I showed you what I could of the KY Learning Hub. This is my new favorite thing, and this is the reason you signed up for the newsletter, because this is going to be dropping in November. So we were thinking about, okay, let's do a webinar. People are a little burned out on those. Let's try a new resource. So this is called an interactive resource, and it has two main components. One is the teacher notes document, and it is an entire learning experience or lesson plan, step by step with pedagogy. If it has a graphic organizer, it's there for you to download and make copies of for students. If it says show students this poster, it has the poster included. So everything you need to teach is in that teacher notes document. It also has an implementation PowerPoint that the teacher can just show to the students. They don't have to build the slides themselves. We went ahead and created them for them. And it shows in the teacher notes document which slide coincides with it. And so we brought in our discipline experts who were also part of the standards revision team. So they know these standards front and back because they helped write them. And most of them are either heavily involved in their statewide arts organization, like our visual arts folks are, one is the president-elect of KYAEA, one is currently on the board and helped with the National Association of Art Education Conference. Alyssa down there for music is a former KMEA Teacher of the Year. Mary Elizabeth Hinton is in charge of Lex Philharmonic's education portion. So these are folks who really understand working with students and were part of the standards revision process. And so what they created We chose to start with responding because, again, we heard from students particularly that they didn't feel like they had a lot of opportunities to respond to the arts, and we wanted to try to fix that. And so they chose a responding standard, and then they did a full learning experience based on that. So dance did some guided improvisation, media arts did a green screen, music did a sound story, theater did a scenic design with a 3D model, and we partnered with our friends at Lexington Children's Theater, the Children's Theater of Kentucky, and visual arts did a really cool writing lesson with a scene cane poem based on the elements of art, which is really, really cool to see. So, okay, I might have to switch my view again. Give me a moment, and I'm going to get you there to where I am. Okay, you should be seeing a new PowerPoint saying responding to the arts dance. Are we seeing that?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So this is what the implementation PowerPoint looks like. So if it's supposed to be shared with students, there's the definitions of elements of dance. That's an example of the video that students are going to watch with the graphic organizer they'll fill out as they're watching so that they can see all of these things. And then we put some exemplars in there. So our new teachers who might not know what students should be putting in these boxes can see what it looks like. So students should say weight, heavy, light, flow, free, bound. So we tried to give as much as we could. Here's another graphic organizer. We also used high quality examples for each of the disciplines and put the video links in there because there are some who are like, I'm on YouTube, but I don't know if this is high quality or not. So we wanted to give some guidance. There's some examples from Alban Ailey and from Hubbard Dance. But then when we couldn't find an example, these teachers took it upon themselves to make their own. And so they felt very strongly that teachers may need a little bit more support in teaching students how to do improvisational dance. And so I said, well, let's make it. I'll call a friend who has a dance studio. Let's meet there and let's film it. And so there's an actual video of them doing the exact exercise. And they are the students and I am the voice of the teacher. You did not want me to do the dancing. I'll just say that. So it's lovely to have true dance teachers doing that. So all of this is throughout. These, again, are just the PowerPoints, which is really lovely. But I want to show you one thing, if I can get to it. Oh, I'll show you the video. This is what makes it stand out. Each section has a video of the teachers who wrote it explaining how to implement it in their voice, in teacher language, with examples. And so it's not just the paper that you have to sit and read. It's actually talking through each step. And so this is the video of the guided improvisation dance that they created. And so I'll play this for you. It's about 4 minutes. We'll probably watch half of it, but you'll get the point. All right, so here's this.
Teachers, this video is designed for your professional learning and is not intended as a resource for students.
At the end of this video, you should feel comfortable facilitating a guided improvisation focused on the sub-elements of force.
As we demonstrate, we invite you to get up and dance with us.
All right, I'm going to call out a sub-element of force. For example, if I say heavy, you will move your body in a heavy way. When the music begins, move through the space. Heavy. Lights.
Continue this exercise as time permits to allow for physical exploration of all sub-elements of force.
Dance on!
All right, so that's just an example of what those videos look like. It was so much fun to dance with them. But this could be a standalone video, but they also use music from that exact learning experience so that teachers could see exactly how it works. And so these are also full playlists that will be published here soon, in like 2 weeks. But you can see, you could play all, and the teacher could listen to the entire learning experience through the voice of the teachers who wrote it. And then they can come back to it as they're going. So again, there's a video for every component of the experience explaining. This is a quick write. We talk about artistic literacy. Here's a quick write to write about what it was like to improvise the dance. There's student reflection questions and teacher reflection questions as part of that, responding to your own teaching and the learning happening in your classroom. And so each of the disciplines has one of those playlists, and it has the guided notes. It has all of those pieces to it. So I'll show you a few more examples. Here's green screen. We are lucky enough to partner with KET. Abby Lane, who also was part of the writing process for the standards, has been working hand in hand on this. And so this is showing teachers how they can use green screen in their classroom. And we went to my husband's school where I used to teach and used their media arts students, and they created some real examples so that students can see how it's done. But in this one, they're talking about how to set up your camera and the importance of light. So I'll show you just a few moments of this one.
Hooray! Your students are now ready to use the 3-part story organizer and the guiding questions to think about how they will respond to their chosen images. Remind students that they will need to pretend they are part of their imagined world. Encourage your students to play around with their characters and improvise, move, talk, and interact as their character. Have fun! It's lights, camera, action time! Introduce your chosen green screen technology and ensure students are comfortable operating their equipment while using their green screen. Pro tip: most green screen programs or apps have free tutorials to help get started, and we recommend you and your students give these a watch. Make sure you model how to move in front of the green screen and stay within the screen's perimeters. Allow time for students to practice moving in front of the screen and have them experiment with how proximity and lighting can affect their green screen results. Lighting is imperative to achieving a good green screen result. If at all possible, make sure your green screen is evenly lit with no shadows.
Okay, so that's just an example of what they're doing. And we have resources from KET linked throughout. I'll show you a few of those as we go through. So that's the media arts example. And the one that they're currently working on is educational podcasts, which is really, really cool. Music is doing a sound story, which used the actual curriculum. It's a HQIR, high quality instructional resource from the Kentucky Learning. And it's a grade level appropriate. And so it uses Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and students use classroom instruments to create the timbre of each character. So Papa Bear may be a large hand drum. Baby Bear may be a triangle. So exploring timbre and sound through these videos. And they did an example of how to do those sounds here.
In the sound story section, students will have the opportunity to explore rhythm using instruments to represent characters.
Students will choose a character, and then you, the teacher, will place them in character groups.
Teach the entire class a rhythm that portrays the characters in the chosen story. We have included examples that are phrased to encourage the use of varying rhythmic dictations. Let's show them, Mary Elizabeth.
Okay, you be the teacher, and I'll be the student.
I would first teach the class the rhythm, I am Papa Bear. This can be done through sight reading or echo. Mary Elizabeth, can you please play the rhythm, I am Papa Bear? Now I will ask Mary Elizabeth to play the rhythm with a quiet dynamic and a slow tempo.
Have
fun exploring the elements of music with the Papa Bear rhythm before repeating this process with the Goldilocks rhythm included in your teacher notes.
All right, so that's a little bit of the music. It's actually really funny. I'm currently wearing the same shirt that Alyssa is wearing in this video. And on the day that she filmed, I was also wearing the same shirt, and we did not plan it. It's just really comfortable. So little lore for you, as the kids say. But that's an example of the sound story. And again, we used actual footage from or pages from the book to draw that literacy connection as well. And again, it still has the student reflection questions, the teacher reflection questions, any graphic organizer that's needed to do it, and all of the examples are included in there. So 2 more that are available in a few weeks. This one is for theater. They liked my idea, but did not like my example. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, well, we heard Lexington Children's Theater is doing Charlotte's Web. So we called Lexington Children's Theater. They allowed us to come in, provided the professional footage of the production that we could use as examples. And we sent questions ahead of time to their scenic team. And they did this whole interview process to talk about the trial and error of building a scenic piece for a show and how the characters would interact with it. Then we interviewed the characters and how they use the scenic designs and what it means to their character. So here's a little bit of Lexington Children's Theater with Charlotte's Web.
Hello and welcome to Lexington Children's Theater. My name is Gabriel Slusser, I'm the technical director.
I'm Leica Myers and I'm the charge artist and assistant technical director.
And we'd love to tell you and show you a little bit of the scenic elements that we use to establish the setting of the show and enhance the storytelling.
First off, we have this bus from Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus.
And we've also got this craft from our touring production of The Little Mermaid. And then below us you can see these are acting cubes that we paint and repaint for all kinds of shows. This treatment is from The Reluctant Dragon. And while we start in a more realistic world, as we turn into the dreamscape, we're able to rotate the cube and really helps to transform that setting into a new location.
So when you see these screens, section 2, this is where the teacher would pause.
Any show that we do it,
and do the graphic organizer section 2. So there are questions for each section of this video and parts for students to do. So then Gabriel talks about all the different materials they tried to get the spiderweb to stand up. And then the actress, Jenna, who plays Charlotte, shows how to change the words and how she works with the scenic design. So here is Jenna.
On this web here today,
Yes.
And we have a question. How does your character interact with the web, and how has it changed throughout the production?
All right, well, Charlotte's interaction with the web, this is her way of communicating with the humans in order to save Wilbur's life by proving that he is a special and important pig. And how this web changes throughout the show is that I have these 3 hooks, and I will just take it off like this. Nice and easy. These are just pieces of yarn woven through this black netting, so you can't see this from the audience, but it just looks like a nice word. And then I will take this off, and I will grab the next word that is hung on a set of hooks, and I will get it, and then just following that same pattern, I will take the hooks. We actually marked these, so it would be easier to see which one's which. We start with the orange. So I go up, hook the orange. We make it look like we're taking the time to make the letters. Get the blue, that. Then finally, we go over. And that is how we change the web.
That is terrific.
So then the next part of that video is other actors from the production talking about how they work with the web. This culminates in the students creating their own web. If Itsy Bitsy Spider needed to communicate like Charlotte, what would Itsy Bitsy Spider say? And so there's a section that talks about the different materials. This has an example from a student out of pipe cleaners of how they created their web. with questions like, now what materials would you use if this needed to be full scale on stage? So that students can start to explore materials and how to use their 3D models to decide what goes on stage. And then there are actual video clips from scenes from Charlotte's Web, Lexington Children's Theater, that shows that scene of her putting terrific, where you cannot see that netting. So you can go immediately from the how-to to the how it looks from the stage. So that's one of my favorite ones. And each of those worksheets has a spider's web theme. It's just really cute. And then the last one for this is it's the Cinquain poem for visual arts. So they take a piece of artwork, and we chose some Kentucky artists, and they'll take that artwork and they'll write their Cinquain poem. It's like the first line is one word to describe the lines you see. The second line is 2 words to describe the color. The third line, and it's all of the elements of art. Then they pass the poem to someone else who has not seen the artwork, and they create art based only on the Cinquain poem. So they may create a piece of work where the lines look completely different than the original, but just showing how the elements of art can change based on perception and how we respond to a piece of art. So again, we're using Kentucky artists. We are allowing students to have that literacy component with writing as well. And then the freedom to explore different mediums. And so here's a little bit of that portion.
In part 2 of the graphic organizer, students will now connect emotions to their descriptions of each element of art. For instance, if a student described the lines in the artwork as wiggly, they may decide the emotion is playful. Be sure to explain that every person may identify a different emotion in the same artwork.
So it's important to note that our teachers understand that sometimes it's hard to get students to understand emotions in comparison to other words. And so they created a series of word banks that are based on the elements of art and emotions that could be coinciding with those words. So all of those resources are there. Here's a little bit of the Kentucky art that we're using in this.
In this next section, students will be turning elements into poetry by using their response to the chosen artwork to write a Cinquain poem. Review the provided information about a Cinquain poem to give students an understanding of its use. The suggested Cinquain structure uses the elements of shape, color, line, and texture with the addition of the overall emotion of the artwork. Use the artwork Strawberry Delight to write a Cinquain as a class to model the process. As students participate in writing the Cinquain, validate their perspectives to reinforce that everyone responds to art in different ways.
So that everyone responds to art in different ways. We love, 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 love that. So that's a little bit about that particular resource. Again, it's coming out soon. We're getting there. And you'll be able, I can't send you any of those links yet, but if you sign up for that newsletter, when it goes live, you'll have access to it right away. The last thing in those resources, we are highlighting Everyday Art Foundations in Artsville from KET, the PBS Learning Media. This is a series of new videos, animated videos that are just really adorable. Let me get my screens back to that one so you can see it. Let me see if I can get it there. Let's see. Are you seeing Everyday Art Foundations now? Perfect. So this, what I love about this, it's animated, which is more engaging for students sometimes, and they just really love that. And so the one that we are highlighting in that one is about responding to the arts. And my colleague absolutely loves this video because it's got a little animated Phantom of the Opera situation here, which is just adorable. The other really great thing about this is it comes with support materials for teachers. There's teaching tips here. Discussion questions for students that you can print as well, and then vocabulary. So if you need vocabulary, the other great thing is you can download these videos. So if you're having a bad internet day, you've already downloaded it, you can play it as well. And then it has the link to the standards that this addresses as well. You have to sign in for some of these pieces, but you can see it shows you the standards. So we'll watch this video. It's 2 minutes long. It's so
Did you know that there's a fancy art word for when you stand in front of a painting you love, dance to a favorite song, gasp while watching a big scene in a play, or even walk away from a statue you think is kind of boring?
Hey, I've seen a lot of them today.
It's called responding. Responding is like hearing what you think an artwork is saying, and then answering back. Whether it's out loud, like telling a friend you love a book, or just to yourself. There are lots of ways to respond to art. One is to notice or describe what you see or hear. What do you see in this painting?
I see a cow in a field, and the sun is shining.
I see lots of colorful boxes.
I see a bunch of people, all looking at that one guy.
I see a bunch of pretty flowers. Another way is to analyze.
What is analyze?
When you ask yourself certain questions about what you see. What colors? What shapes? Does it look soft or rough?
It looks thick and goopy. What else?
Ask questions about what you think the artist is trying to say. Does it tell a story? How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel happy.
Last is evaluate.
Evaluate.
Right. Like, do you like it? Why or why not? Or do you like some parts and not others? And how would you compare it to other works of art? Engaging with art is a skill you can build, but it's also really fun. We have so much art and music because people love to make it, but also love to look at it and listen to it. Art can make you feel and think new things.
I think it's working already.
So yeah, we love the Everyday Art Foundations. I'll put that link in the chat for you because you can use those right away. So that's available to you. And then the other side of that is Artsville. Let me drop this link and then I'll show you Artsville real quick. This also will show you what grade level. So this is meant for grades K through 5. So that's more elementary minded, which is fine. We need that too. And then Artsville, let me see if I can get that link to work. I think I fixed my link. We'll see. We'll see if we did. No, I didn't. Okay, hold on. Let's do Artsville. And this is another one that's animated videos. I'll have to send it to you, but they have already been translated into Spanish as well. So you can play the video in Spanish or English. Let me see. I think I found it. Yes. Okay. But you can see elements of dance, instrument families. There's audience etiquette. I've been asking everyone to share audience etiquette. We've got to rebuild our audience etiquette. Dramatic structure. And again, in Spanish, las cuatro voces, the 4 voices. So Artsville is another really great resource. And again, it has those same things like the teacher resources. There's some background reading on some of them that you can add. So dramatic structure has background reading that you can provide to students as well. Some of these go up through middle school. This is grade 6 through 8, and discussion questions. And this one even has handouts that you can include. So sometimes it's not even about using this exact thing. It's about getting more ideas. So I would suggest searching through those. And I will say, Perry, you mentioned your environmental art. If you've not checked out outdoor art from KET, I would suggest that as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Yeah, outdoor art is all about, they use some of the work at Josephine Sculpture Park in Frankfurt, and they use some other just kind of sculpture pieces to talk about art around you. And they come with those same ideas of the teacher resources and the lessons. So this might be something, Perry, you'd be interested in with your connections as well. Okay, this is where I wrap things up so that you can go enjoy your evening. Let me switch to my last slides for you. I hope that these are useful for you. I'm gonna skip through this because you've kind of already done it. And just open the floor for any questions as you're thinking about how these standards can help you ensure that your students are reaching those milestones they deserve to reach. The floor is open for questions. The chat is also open. Oh, Steve has questions, but he's going to wait and see if anyone else has one.
I'm going to defer to Steve.
Okay, Steve, the floor is yours.
Well,
Which
thank
is
you.
something I never say because my husband's name is Steve. So I never say the floor is yours.
It's Steve, no.
Correct.
So I run a performing and visual arts center. So I'm coming at this from a different perspective. And I've really learned a lot in this. Thank you. And I can't
You're
wait
welcome. Thank you.
to dig in. What I'm thinking is when I have performances that are going to be field trips or art exhibits that I want to have as field trips, I want to put the standards, and I get so lost in the numbers and all the different directions that is there a simple way? I mean, would the anchor standards be the easiest way to do that?
I'd say absolutely yes. I'm going to share this part of my screen so you can see that page of that document. Because what I would suggest, and remember that beginning section is the front matter. There's a link to anchor standards.
Okay.
And that's going to be page 10 of the PDF.
And then is that, so if we were going to develop a basic, because we are not educators, we are, but we're not trained like K-12 educators, to create a study guide for pre or post or during the experience, what to look for, again, looking for the standards to help with what might connect once we look at those anchor standards.
Absolutely. I think, and honestly, this PBS learning media is one of the best ways I think to start, because again, they have like questions for before viewing, during viewing, after viewing, and we want students to be engaged with productions and but they need something to think about as they're watching, or they'll just be watching aimlessly sometimes. So even if there's like a something that you send to teachers and say, on the bus ride over, ask your students these questions. And then those are the same questions that are asked after, if there's a talk back or something of that nature, something to engage and then to tie it into a nice, pretty little bow. And then also, if you look at what PBS learning media does, those standards are kind of there and it says anchor. They're really just using that anchor statement. We worked recently with the National Quilt Museum, who was doing a quilt exhibit tied to math and art. And we did the same thing. We encouraged them to use the anchor standards because then let's say a music class is coming to see your musical. They have the same anchor standard as the theater students. So you don't have to try to reinvent the wheel for any particular group coming. The anchor standards are going to be the same across all 5 of those and reach from K through high school.
Oh, that's great. And that, I know that teachers sometimes have a hard time convincing administration to go on a field trip, especially if it might look like it's just a play or a concert, but to be able to say, here's what you can use, here are tools that you can use for your argument, your reason.
Absolutely. Yeah, and your teachers are going to be more willing to lose that classroom time for their standards if they know that the standards are at the front of the work that they're doing to take the field trip.
I have one other quick question.
Yeah.
Is there a way to intersect standards? So if I'm bringing a Spanish guitarist from Spain, and so we've got classical guitar music, but we're also looking at Spanish culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you absolutely could. And that kystandards.org has all the content areas. So if you wanted to look at maybe a social studies standard for a culture or a world language standard, you could flip through those as well and see how they align best. That's not my area of expertise, but it is very, very possible. And that's what the Quilt Museum did with math standards and art standards.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other questions? I don't want to hold you all too long. I know you've already spent some time here with me, and I appreciate you so much for being here.
I just want to say I'm very impressed and I can't wait to get in there and explore and find all the different interactive media that's in there. That's going to be fun.
That's so great. Just let me know. We'll come hang out. We'll go through it together.
Yeah. Get some popcorn.
Yes. Well, if you ever need me, please reach out. My personal email at KDE is there, the Green, jessica.greene@education.ky.gov. There's also an email for the KDE Arts in case I'm out of the office and you need an answer right away. The social media is there as well. All of that is there for you. And if you ever have additional questions, please reach out and I will get back to you as soon as possible and support you in any way that I can.